hope everybody had a fantastic lunch and everything like that. I thought it was brilliant, to be honest. I'm doing that sort of like that graveyard shift before everybody gets to do the exciting stuff and then goes home. But it's only going to be like 10 minutes. And I was saying at the break, I feel like a bit like you might do me under trade's description at the end of this, to be honest, because I'm meant to be talking about working with an autistic young person, and I think there's only about 3 points in there at the end of all the slides, to be honest. So, yeah, stick with me on it. So, yeah, I'm Pete. I'm a practitioner basically with CWP. So, haven't climbed any mountains recently, haven't invented anything or anything like that. But I'm going to talk about this. So, the first thing was, yeah, it says sort of like one of the most common things that comes up in our reflective sort of like sessions and in the training with people is, oh, how do you work with somebody who's on the autism spectrum? And so, yeah, obviously it's on lots of people's minds, this. And I did think about all these highfalutin ideas for what I could do. I was going to film stuff and everything like that. And actually, it ended up just really hard, basically. So, and with work and everything, it just didn't get done. And when I thought about it, actually, yeah, I'd just be doing a case study of working with one person, you know, like, and actually we work with, you know, tens, hundreds of people all the time. And so all that would tell you about would be about working with one person that you weren't actually working with. And so I thought, well, let's look at it a different way. And that was, you know, like that we were perhaps looking at things the wrong way. And yeah, I started to think, actually, is it just about us? Which is that, you know, like, yeah, working with somebody with autism can be a bit different, but then, you know, like, we're in this job because we're all good at working with people. We just like talking to people. We, you know, like, we generally sort of like get great pleasure in helping people. And so actually it's like we've got lots of those skills already. And is it not just a little bit about our own fears and maybe a little bit of confidence sort of thing? I could call it being more niche, basically, couldn't I? Sort of thing. So, yeah, I got sort of like, yeah, I got Jenny to put some cards up. I thought, oh, guess what? I feel like I'm reflecting myself using these cards, to be honest. It's like, if you're feeling a little bit stressed or a little bit unsure about something and you want to feel strong, then how should I go about it? So, yeah, I just wanted to talk about some tips, really, which was, this is, you know, hopefully this is going to be a theme for the whole afternoon, which is do some practice first. You know, like, just as soon as you get the training done, if you can, do some practice. I know a lot of these people here are already practitioners and everything, but I do also think maybe you come across people who've recently had the training, and I'm just saying, if you can, encourage them to just have a go at things. And because, as it says there, I'm sure everyone recognises that the longer between the learning that takes place and the having a go, the more time there is for all those doubts to come into the situation. And yeah, just do parts of the tool and get yourself going. I put there, I don't know, that's the way it came out in my head anyway, where I said that. But it's that, I do love the idea that actually people recognise who it might be helpful with straight away when they have the training. And often it is things like, oh, that person with autism, I've never really connected with them in that way, and maybe that's the first person I should go and work with. So I love that, but actually it's just have a go. And so, yeah, and give yourself, as the cards up there, give yourself a bit of time and build your skills, basically. And then, yeah, take some time and take some small steps, which, you know, I'm really glad that Mitch actually put that in, didn't he? Saying about take those first steps. And just, yeah, just use what skills you've got, talk and sort of like build that trust. And the thing is, the next steps cards are absolutely great in that they just break down into things really naturally. You know, like, I don't know, I'm second guessing people, but when the training's gone on, I wonder whether people come away thinking, I've got to do all of that. I've got to have a complete start and a complete end, and they've got to get to this score at the end of it, and it's wonderful. And actually, you know, like, real life is, for most of us, is that we're using parts of the tools at different times with young people. We're being flexible. We're using our skills with a great tool, basically. And it can be broken down and used in chunks. I've got, yeah, because actually it's a tool. It's not a magic wand, as I said, except for the magic wand card, obviously. And relax and just take your time, gain some information, because if you gain some information, you understand that person better. And you don't have to fix everything immediately. So this doesn't just apply to young people on the autism spectrum, it applies to everybody we're working with. And so, yeah, my mantra, I have a couple of mantras. One is sort of like, I've got a pencil case with Dory on it, which is just keep swimming. And then this, relax and listen. That's how we become great practitioners, basically. Now, yeah, this is the bit to avoid the traits descriptions bit, which is, yeah, you know, like, if you want to be specific about working with people on the autism spectrum, then there are a lot of useful things about these cards. You know, like, we have found young people just seem to like the cards, you know, like the way they look, the way they feel, the visual nature about them. Giving people sort of like control and handing over the cards is just really useful. When I've worked with people with sort of like learning disability or autism spectrum condition, just being prepared to sort of like sometimes just make it short and focused, rather than sort of like thinking that you've got to achieve the whole thing in that one go. Likewise, I was talking at the break, and actually the other bit about it is that it's quite a good tool for just slowing things down. So sometimes it takes longer than 15 minutes, but actually it's sort of like, it just helps that young person and helps us basically in understanding the situation, where you're free to sort of like take a little bit more time with things. And yeah, the other thing was talking to somebody in the queue, and it was like, actually, a few of us are trained in it. It would be lovely if we could get more people trained in it, particularly in schools. And so sort of like, my advert is go back and talk to people and see if you can get anybody else trained in it. Because it's great they are really good at using the cards at times of need. And they're just great for doing a bit at a time with people, because of the visual nature of them, you're able to just take a photograph, so you almost freeze it at that moment, and you can come back a week later, stick the cards back out, and it's almost like you're just starting off again. So I could go on about that. I could go on about the specifics of working with one or two people over my career in working in learning disability and then in the mental health support team. But really, I would say, if you've got something specific, then my email's at the end, so you can always email. I haven't got the answer to everything, but I'm quite happy to be a sounding board. Or the reflective spaces, really. So that's that. So I do realise I'm sounding a bit like an advert for this stuff rather than autism, but and I hope you'll let me off for sort of like, yeah, thinking stuff under the traits description, exactly. So, one last bit, yeah. Just to show you that actually you can have a total disaster sometimes anyway. So, yeah, a young person did this to me last week, which I've never seen before. They literally created their own spectrum, and it was a bit like, yeah, what am I going to do with this? That's the thing. So I am actually going back there next week. So my thought is sort of like, I'm going to take that, but I've also sort of like tried to make sense of it for me. And actually my discussion is going to be about sort of like, actually how they seem to see it differently to me, and maybe we can find a middle way that means that I'm not quite so thick. And That's it. I've just bought Hey Ho. If it doesn't look perfect the first time, then luckily we're not videotaped when we do these things. So you can always just go back to the office, say you've got Adam here. If you're anything like in our team, you've got a box of sweets in the filing cabinet. Now that, have a cup of tea, which is, again, a Mitch thing I'm going to take with me, and you just go for it. Okay? So, yeah, as I said, my email address is there. It gets sent out and everything like that. But if there's something specific you want to ask, brilliant. If not, we're part of a massive community, and sort of like, I'm sure people have got just masses of ideas. Okay.
Has anyone got any questions now? Do you want to hold it?
I just want to ask quickly, those cards in the photograph, they're all next step ones?
Yeah, they were all next step ones. Actually, last year when we talked about things, I did use Boardmaker alongside next steps cards with a young person who had sort of like, yeah, much more minimal verbal language, and that is something you can do. So I think it was just probably the way that it was. Here, I'll show you. It was probably the way that it was laid out.
Black, sort of darkish ones. I can't really see.
We've got the world up there, which is one of our life cards.
Traffic light.
The traffic light.
The traffic light.
I think it might be the traffic lights. There's just a bit of a glare on the photograph potentially. But what I would say is that we've got
Yeah, the one below orange.
That's me.
the me card.
And that was the me card.
So
They literally picked it up and said that's where they were at this moment in time. Which, again, when we talked last year, we talked about it can be useful to either make a picture of that young person or use something like the me card, or just cut something out, and they could use it to basically walk along with. Usually you'd use it on sort of like scaling, you know, the goal-based outcomes, but you can use it for walking along in terms of that. But this person just did it themselves, and as I said, it was a bit like, oh.
Yeah, it's really nice though. It's really collaborative.
Yeah,
It's creative, isn't it? I think we've got another question. Jenny, are you okay?
Yeah, where am I?
Just at the back there. Thank you.
Where?
Just right at the back. Would you mind putting your hand up again just to show the question? Thank you.
Is there anywhere we can use cards?
Email me.
Any more questions before we move on? Okay. Is that all right?
Which I
Yeah.
was going to say thank you, and hopefully this segues into.
Yes, it does. It segues in really nicely. Thanks very much, Pete.
Thank you.